All right. Well, welcome. We're going to be getting started in just a moment here. So look forward to having you join us today. So we've got a great guest today. Eddy Skripko is joining us from Hawaii. So it's going to be really cool to connect with him. So give us just one moment and we'll be off and running as all the various live feeds and recordings get started. So I'd love to have you join us today. Please drop a comment or a question if you're joining us on Facebook Live, and we'd love to engage you in the conversation as well. So just one moment and we're almost rolling. Welcome to the School of Kingdom Writers podcast. My name is Brad Paquette, and I will be your host today. And I am just so looking forward to talking to my guest, Eddy Skripko, today. Eddy is a graduate of our Arche Year program. So he has spent the last 8 months working with me and several other students, completing a novel draft and also building an author's platform. So he's taken a really unique perspective on that. And I just can't wait for you guys to hear from him. I think you're going to just fall in love with this guy and be looking forward to the things that he's putting out into the world as much as I am. So before I get there, I do want to invite you to join the Kingdom Writers Guild. So, we do these really intensive classes, and I know that those can be difficult to get to. Even our part-time stuff is a big commitment, as is our full-time class, of course. But we want to make sure that we're making good resources and encouragement available to writers of all skill levels, no matter where you are, no matter what you're able to commit to at this time. So the Kingdom Writers Guild is an awesome way for you to get involved. We're in the process of launching a brand new website right now at kingdomwritersguild.org. Head there right now. Check it out. You'll find that it's a little bit in construction mode, but we've got some classes that are going to be popping there this week that are going to be super helpful and valuable for a writer, no matter where you are on that journey. So we'd love to have you join us. So with that said, and no further ado, I'd love for you to meet Eddy Skripko. Eddy, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you are joining us from Hawaii. So of course I've got to make jokes about how good the weather is and everything there, right?
We got pounded with some rain yesterday, so it's not all sunshine 24/7.
Right.
A
It
good
rains
chunk
like
of the time.
10 days a year or something, or worse than that,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we've all been toiling away. About half the cohort is in Ohio and a few others scattered around the United States. And so we're all dealing with this dreary winter weather through most of the cohort. And Eddy literally brings some sunshine into our lives every Saturday when we get together. So Eddy, you've been working on this book. Tell us about it. What have you been doing?
Yeah, so been working on this novel. It's loosely based on a true story, but it's for the most part fictional. Basically, I chronicle the life of a woman who has an abusive childhood, immersed in alcoholism, alcoholic from an early age, like age 12. As she enters adulthood, she just ends up going down this weird spiral, ends up in a horrible marriage. She gets abused, has a kid when she tries to get away from him, and then just gets stuck with him. And somehow in the midst of it, she ends up finding God and finding a purpose for her life. There's millions of encounters she has in which she nearly dies, and she somehow miraculously survives it. And the whole premise is God's the comforter in all of it, and the devil is out to destroy her life and kill her, and God's not done with her yet. So that's what I've been working on.
Yeah, I love that. And, the way that you're writing it, it's such a real story. But why that story? Of all the things you could write about, why is that what you chose?
So the book is loosely based on the life of a friend of mine. And when I sat down with her to have this discussion about the possibility of doing it, I left the meeting checking myself. My faith can get pretty shaky after a bad day at work, but she has been through hell and she's just got this really strong faith. And I think it's one of those stories that Christians need to read. I mean, honestly, they need to just be like, okay, do I have faith that can survive the test of fire of life? So I hope that that's the kind of book it ends up being, and it just really gets people checking themselves the way I was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, and tell us about your process of writing that. So, as the audience knows at this point, you've been working alongside of me. You've been doing all the work really, but I've been here reading parts of it and coaching a little bit and things like that. But just what was the process like working through the Arche Year Cohort? What could somebody else expect if they were thinking about coming into this?
Ooh, the process was beautiful, challenging, just, deep faith deepening, honestly. Like the more I wrote, a lot of the book, the more I was just like kind of I don't know how to describe it, but really I just felt my faith becoming stronger and just even going through this character's tale. I mean, again, it's just it's a convicting tale to write. Um, as far as the whole Arc Year program goes, it's just been, a incredible, experience. Being part of the cohort especially is incredible. Like just all the in-depth time I've had with you and the group, it's just been encouraging, uplifting, and it's not just all that either. It's so professional. I took a college course on narrative and construct development. I was a communications major. I never got this in depth. This is like such great hands-on work for the process. So,
That's really cool. Thanks for
mhm,
saying that.
mhm.
So what surprised you the most? Were there any parts that were either unexpectedly challenging or maybe you just like, you never thought of that before?
Yeah, I mean, when I first applied to do this, I mean, I just saw a free novel writing course. I'm like, oh, why not? And just a little quick tidbit I got to throw out there. If I hadn't been part of the cohort that you got going, I probably would not have done anything. I
Sure.
sign up for free classes all the time, and I get through half a session, and then that's it. But
Well, yeah, and so just for clarity for you guys, what Eddie means is our cohort meets an initial time each week. So we got this free Arc Year class, which has been awesome. We had like 200 people sign up for it, but then a small group of people. I think we started with 8 people, and there was a little bit of attrition over time with that group. But we met an additional time each week, and so those students also, I would meet with them frequently, one-on-one and in small groups, and we'd pray for each other and just developed this really cool community that surprised me even just how tight this group became. So sorry to interrupt, Eddie. You go ahead.
no, you're fine. Thanks for the clarity. But
Sure.
but no, even outside of that, in his lectures and all that, and on the Facebook group that everyone's a part of in the Arc Year, Brad touches on all these things like social media marketing, website development, SEO, newsletters, all this stuff I didn't see coming when I first signed up for the course, which was what it kind of before I went off on this tangent a little. All I thought was I'm just going to write a novel and then a manuscript, the end. No, it's really like, how do you write a publishable novel? How do you publish it? What are the business steps you have to take? I didn't see that coming. And I'm just like, oh boy, I don't know if I can handle it, but it's actually incredibly neat. So.
That's cool. That's cool.
Mhm.
And what was the most challenging part of the actual writing itself?
The actual writing, probably writing dialogue for me is a bit challenging. If Brad ever has read it, he knows that I'm this very like essay style person, and he's any of my other samples that he's looked at, I know he's read through my whole manuscript, but he's probably noticed like, okay, I'm very much this like must express in overly complicated thoughts person. Having to work around that has been hard and be a conversationalist, but I think over time it really did become much more real.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, right? I mean, it was really cool. I noticed this especially with you, Eddie, that it took you a minute to like, kind of find your groove, just to
Mhm.
like feel comfortable writing. But there was a point in the process where you really like clicked in and it really seemed to make sense. And then you took off with it. So
Thank
that's
you.
awesome. Yeah. Well, and at the same time, you're writing this novel, but that's because that's not enough to do. We also,
Mhm.
as you mentioned, we have you doing all this other stuff, building a website and newsletter list and, developing social media content and all this stuff. So tell us about that. What have you been working on?
Well, I'm still working on the newsletter a little, and still trying to integrate some social media aspects. I think Facebook I've been doing pretty well. I've got, by the way, Eddy Skripko on Facebook, just in case anyone's curious, quick plug in.
Yeah,
At
absolutely.
Eddy.Skripko and at Eddy.Skripko on Twitter. Twitter is still one I'm working to integrate, but I have enjoyed doing that. As far as the website goes, I actually really love the blogging part. It's a lot of fun for me. I like having all these ideas for posts come to my mind, and I'm just like, okay, how do I turn that into something? I've really enjoyed that.
That's cool. So tell us about the topic. Like, what value are you bringing into the world?
So the topic for the website,
Yeah.
so it's mostly about My tagline is Eddy Skripko, helping the outcast find a hope or a home. But it's all about just helping work with outcasts who are social misfits. And that's how I grew up. I don't know how to describe it, but growing up in Hawaii, I just wasn't this typical surfer boy guy running around the beach. I was this guy on the side, just reading books all the time because kids could be kind of mean to me when I was younger. And I just didn't want to be around it anymore. I'm like, okay, my only option is I have to set myself apart and just be the outcast, which is fine until it gets lonely. But so I know people who go through that struggle, and so I know I'm not the only one, and I'm just trying to help them find hope. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you outline that so well on your website. So, everybody should just go to eddyskripko.com and read some of your blog posts there. And so Eddy is EDDY and Skripko is SKRIPKO, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So eddyskripko.com, check it out because you've just done a wonderful job of bringing a vulnerability to that topic. What was that like, choosing a topic that you really have to put yourself out? I mean, you kind of have to admit, like I felt like an outcast. I felt like a weirdo for part of my life. Like, was that hard to get there?
It was very hard to get there. I honestly didn't think it was gonna have much value. I don't know why, but it just kind of felt like another millennial whining about his emotional issues. But it's just, that's what it felt like at first. But it's like, no, those emotional issues are real. And people need to know that they're not alone in the struggle. They need to know how to rise above it. And if I can do anything to help with that, then I'm thrilled. I'm glad I chose this as my topic.
Yeah, no, and that's wonderful. You really are doing a great job of that, and bringing that sense of community, because that is almost a universal struggle. I think, like no matter how popular someone might have been in their life, everybody ultimately feels alone, don't we? So
Yeah.
even though some people like have to deal with that on a greater basis than others, I think that's almost a universal condition, especially in modern America where we're so isolated, and especially at this time of COVID. Like, could you have chosen a better time in the history of the world to introduce a topic like that? So that's really cool. So you mentioned the website and the social media, and you've got a newsletter and things like that. What's been the most challenging part of that for you?
I think integrating the social media aspects has been the most challenging. It can be tough to try to sum it up. I mean, especially on Twitter where you have a limited amount of words, and I'm this person who has to be overly detailed about everything. Like, how do you get these? There's other things you do. You post links or to your blog or whatever, but there's also how do you become conversational, integrate with people and your subscribers, your viewers, your followers. Being a conversationalist while still, staying in line with a niche that you're doing, that's been a bit hard. Yeah, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Eddy, what have you come to most naturally? Like, oh, you wish you've been doing this your whole life. It just fits.
Like I said, it was pretty much the blogging, because I mean, I've always been the person who loved to write his thoughts all the time. I'm old enough to have had a MySpace account. Remember that, everybody?
I do.
And I was writing stuff on there all the time when I was a kid. So that came pretty naturally. I just never knew. Back then I did movie reviews because that's just how I was as a young guy. But writing stuff that I think is, what I've been doing since I was a teenager. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and yeah, so you've been doing this a long time.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if when you entered the program, if you would have used the language that you feel called to write or not. But how has your understanding of what a phrase like that even means changed over the course of the program?
I don't know if it's changed too much. I mean, I still sometimes don't even know what the understanding is. I listened to one of your podcasts once, and you did say, being called to write doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a best-selling author or whatever.
Yeah.
And some people, they're called to write might just mean they wrote one novel. And that novel took off or whatever. But my thing was, it was just like, okay, I know I'm good at something, and I know that many Christians in my life, my fellow Christians, they just say, you really have something good going there and you should be using that more. So
Yeah.
that was just me kind of going off of the knowledge I already had. You can wait for a voice in the sky all you want, but but you'll be waiting for a while. The It was really just take a step of faith, see what happens, and just the personal development, that I've experienced, the spiritual development was kind of enough for me to say, it's like, okay, it seems like God really did have his hand on this whole thing.
Yeah.
So, this wasn't one of those wait for some vision to happen. It's just like, take a chance, do something. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me about that. What was the spiritual development and personal development part like for you?
Well, with the novel, I was writing a story, but I was sneaking in theological concepts a lot. And, the more even writing them down and thinking about them, it's just like, wow, this is me writing some very deep stuff. I hope I can live this the way I'm having this character have to live this. And, my site does get pretty, there is a lot of biblical quotes in there. It's very, there's a lot of theological stuff I throw into my site, into my blog posts. And it's just, that actually just keeps me in the Word of God, because it's like, now I need it for the sake of my development and for the sake of my content, but it's still, keeping me, it's like, okay, you need to stay focused on this because your writing is kind of centered on it. And it just inadvertently, I just grow more in the truth as I'm, keeping all that stuff as a focus.
Yeah, no, that's really true. I mean, you
Yeah.
kind of you're putting it out there publicly, right? So now there's this opportunity for hypocrisy if you're not careful. That's a big deal, right? That's a huge thing. So,
Yeah.
so what comes next for you, Eddy? Where does this all go from here?
Great question. I mean, my big thing is just get the revision going. I do believe that there's a long-term thing that's going to happen with all of this. I'm going to have this website. I'm going to keep going because now I have people following. I mean, honestly, just the fact that people are now looking and they're liking my posts and they're following me on whatever social media platform you have, it's just like, okay, you have an audience. There's accountability. So I'm just going to continue to develop that for now, try to build my brand.
Yeah.
And, the more opportunities come along to build on that, the more I will be, trying to take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you are in this really cool place where you at this point get to determine your pace and things like that. But Jesus, of course, tells us the parable of the talents, like you have an opportunity, like he's invested some people in you now. Like, what are you going to do with it? Right. I mean, that's kind of the question I feel like we're in a position to answer right now. So how optimistic are you moving forward now that you've collected a lot of the course content? And, I was thinking about as we get ready to wrap up the course, the last official class is this Thursday. And, one of the topics that I'm going to cover is that Jesus tells us that he says, if you're going to build a tower, wouldn't you first calculate the cost first? So that you'd be able to finish it and people won't laugh at you. And, a big piece of the Arche Year course helps us to count the cost, like, because most people coming into the course, they have no idea what it takes to be a writer. They don't understand. They understand the sitting in front of the computer and making up imaginary scenes and characters, but not all the other things that you have to do. So now you're in a place where you've been able to count the cost. You kind of have a clear, complete picture of what this is going to take. That's all a really long question to ask. How optimistic are you moving forward that you could do this?
Nervous but optimistic, very much. Like, cause
and that's very much Eddy, right? That's very much your personality.
Yes. Brad knows like how anxious I can get sometimes, but there is like, okay, I'm nervous. It's like, is this gonna, be worth it in the long haul? Am I gonna continue to pull this off? But like I said, being part of the group was the accountability that I needed at the time. Having an audience now is the accountability that will sustain me moving forward, I think, because I do want to keep, putting out content, keep engaging with people, keep them like wanting more. So, and I don't know what it is, but just knowing people are looking at this now is like, okay, you live up to it. Please your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what else should people know, Eddie? And, one of our core values at the School of Kingdom Writers is transparency. So I don't know what you're going to say. You can say anything you want, but what should people know about the School of Kingdom Writers, about our programs, about our culture, about me? What do you want people to know?
It's incredible, first of all.
All right. I'll take it.
Yeah, like I said, no offense to my college days, they were awesome, but this was much more hands-on, and I have to give Brad some props. How he was able to make such a hands-on course when everyone is social distancing and when there's like nobody in an office or whatever together, it's you pulled it off beautifully. So
Thanks.
yeah, but like really, was, this is in depth. This is stuff that's going to tell you how to become a writer. It is going to tell you how you have to market yourself. There was a time once apparently where you did not really have to do all the marketing yourself, but in the digital age, this is for the older people who are just now finally following their call to rights. It's not what it was back in the day. You are doing all the marketing yourself. You'll have to start using social media. And Brad just beautifully lays out, it does not have to be a challenge. You make it sound doable. And aside from all the professional, and the professional parts, the marketing parts, the writing parts, I don't think there's anyone who's going to say that their faith and their relationship with God didn't grow through the course. If I can't speak for everybody, but I just have a pretty darn good feeling. Yeah, I really do think that this is a growing opportunity, and professionally, spiritually, and personally. So highly recommended.
That's awesome, Eddie. And I couldn't have put better words in your mouth if I'd scripted them. So thank you for saying that. And I'm flattered. So Eddie, one more time, if people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
So eddyskripko.com, EDDYSKRIPKO.com. Eddy Skripko on Facebook, and at Eddy.Skripko on Twitter.
All right. Awesome, Eddie. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And also, just one more time, I told you this before, but you have such a cool name, which definitely helps authors become successful. So it's been a pleasure to work with you. It's been just super awesome to get to know you and to hear your heart and to have you pray for me and pray for the other cohort students as well. So absolute pleasure. And you've been a real asset to the cohort as a whole. So thanks, Eddie. And we're all looking forward to seeing your manuscript come out and your platform continue to develop. So keep up the awesome work.
Thank you, Brad.
Absolutely. So that is Eddy Skripko. He gave his links and things like that, but I'd love for you to connect with him. I think he's a guy that you're going to want to watch, that you're going to want to pay attention to in the coming years. So he's one of 5 people that are graduating from your cohort this May. And so they've had this tremendous experience to write a novel manuscript and to work personally one-on-one with me as they did that, and have all their questions answered and to be encouraged and to, build our faith with each other and things like that throughout the process. So it's been an incredible experience for the students and for me. And, a big piece of why we did the cohort, of course, we want to educate people and we want to help them achieve their goals. That's our whole mission, but it's also a testing ground for our full-time program. So full-time School of Kingdom Writers begins this fall. And we've got some students signed up and moving to Zanesville, Ohio from around the United States to be a part of this program. We are just so incredibly excited about that. So please keep us in your prayers as we complete our final preparation stages. We are working on, getting a space finalized for those students, finalizing the curriculum, and just so many other practical factors that we have to put in order. So thank you for praying. I know that these students that are coming this fall, much like Eddie, are just going to have a tremendous impact on the world around them. And that's why we're here. That's what this is all about. It's not just about, people want to write, so let's help them write. It's about God is using writers to achieve real impact in the world. Psalm 24:1 says, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it." And I've quoted that before, and I will quote it many, many, many more times if you continue to follow us. But we believe that. I believe that the media belongs to the Lord. And there are so many realms in our life that we just kind of sacrifice it. We just kind of say, well, we're going to focus on this over here because that's too hard. That's too far gone. But I don't believe that. I believe that God is putting a plan in action right now that involves the School of Kingdom Writers, that involves so many really cool organizations and writers and people that I've met along the way. And God is putting a plan in place to redeem the media. to make it serve his purposes. And I'm just stoked to be a part of that. So love for you to join us in that effort, in that movement. You can check out our website at sokw.org and see what we're all about, as well as do things like join our newsletter so that you can be one of our prayer partners. And really, that's one of the best things that you can do. But check it out. Please contact us with any questions at any time, and we'd love to talk to you. So be blessed. Happy writing. Let's transform the media together, and I will see you soon as we talk to another author.